Hello everyone and welcome to an incredible game from round 2 of this year's Uzbek Chess Cup. Sorry, I have 2024 there twice, just realized. And it's one of those games that players play like there's no chess theory. It's like a game from, let's say, the 1900s or maybe even 1800s. It's a really wild game. At some point, the white king ends up on e4, then on d4, with queens, rook still on the board. It's a complete mess. So it's like I said, from the Uzbek Chess Cup round 2, some very strong players playing here. If some other games arise, I will talk a little bit more about the tournament. But you guys need to know that it's a classical event. So an hour and a half for the entire game, and also I did include the clocks for this video. I usually don't do it for classical chess, but here it's crucial to understand what's happening. You'll see what I mean by this. So okay, Nodirbek with the white pieces opens with pawn to d4. Last time we featured Nodirbek on the channel was last year in Qatar Masters, where that game against the other Nodirbek, against Nodirbek Abdusattorov. Two of them finished on 7 out of 9. It was an incredible event, and it's a pretty wild game. So if you haven't seen it, will be the first link in the description below. Pawn to d5 and pawn to c4. We have the queen's gambit, and Vidit accepts the gambit. D captures on c4. And for those of you who are only getting into chess and you might be crazed out by all of the lines of the queen's gambit declined, maybe accepting the gambit isn't a bad way to go. Probably your opponent will know less how to play against this as well. We have pawn to e4, and now usually e5 is played here. Just to give you an example, let's say pawn to e5, knight f3, black will capture on d4, white will capture on c4. Let's say knight c6, you defend the pawn, castles, knight to f6, and now something like, well, knight to f6 isn't even a good move. Here you have to be really careful with something like bishop to e6. But if you play a natural looking move like knight f6, already black can be in quite some trouble. If knight to e5 going after the queen and bishop, you're not in time, just like in the Evans Gambit. You first capture on f7, and let's say if the queen defends bishop d2, you take away the a5 square from the knight. This is already very, very strong for white. But here Vidit is prepared pawn to b5. It's, I think, like the 5th most popular continuation here, sort of the old way of playing the queen's gambit. Accepted, and everyone, including your uncle, knows that b5 is always countered with a5. I don't think there's a position in the queen's gambit accepted where b5 is not countered with a4. So pawn to c6, we have captures, and now pawn to b3. And I know when you're playing this with black and you have this setup here and white plays b3, you start getting really scared and you blunder the game. But it's actually very simple to continue this, and Vidit will show us the way. Pawn to e5. Now the idea is you're inviting white to play pawn to d5, and it looks like a great move. White gets a pass pawn, but now the problem is you give black too much too quickly. Knight f6 already comes with an attack on the pawn. Let's say knight to d2, defending already bishop to b4, and in the hands of a strong grandmaster, this will be winning for black. So instead, after this pawn to e5 move, also knight to f3 can be played, but here d captures on e5 was played, and this is what why I included the clocks here. So if you check out the clocks, Nodirbek spent some 20 minutes on the clock. Vidit spent 0 time. He blitzed out all of his moves. He still has an hour and 30 minutes on the clock. And D captures on e5 is, in fact, the top move recommended by the engine. So the engine says D captures on e5 is the strongest move. And Vidit is the one who obviously surprised Nodirbek here, as he spent 0 time reaching this position. But Vidit, for his next move, does not play instantly or after a minute or even after 5 minutes. Vidit plays bishop to b4 check, and look at the clock now. 47 minutes. So he spent half of his time, almost 45 minutes on this one bishop to b4 move. It is the top move recommended by the engine, but what was Vidit thinking there? It's very, very hard to say. Maybe he just didn't know it because no one ever played D captures on e5. Maybe it's just not a very ambitious way for white to play, so no one really checks it. But it results in a very interesting game. Bishop to d2, and now Vidit instantly goes bishop to c5. So he was calculating this for a very long time. Knight to f3, and now knight to c6, just continuing development. We have knight to c3 and bishop to g4, pinning the knight. So Vidit now should just develop the knight, castle kingside, and he will be safe. We have knight captures on b5, preparing some knight to d6 check maybe. So knight captures on e5, putting pressure on the f3 knight, and bishop captures on c4. So inviting the doubling of the pawns on the f-file, knight to f6, and now pawn to h3. Nodirbek There's Vidit to capture on f3, and it is the safest way to play. It's even good for black. You just capture, and after g captures, you just castle, and it's a very nice game. The white king is in the center of the board. Okay, there is maybe the semi-open g file to worry about, but it doesn't look very likely. So instead, Vidit goes for bishop captures on f2 check, and he starts the attack against the white king before Nodirbek has a chance to castle. Bishop captures on f2 check, king captures on f2. King to e2 is actually much better. But okay, that's besides the point. King captures on f2, knight captures on e4 with check. We have king to e3, only move that is playable for white. Bishop captures on f3, g captures, and now knight captures on d2. We have queen captures, and now, of course, you cannot trade queens. You're down a piece. Queen to g5 with check. There is only one move that doesn't lose for Nodirbek. That is pawn to f4. And now knight captures on c4 with check first. B captures, and now queen to g3 with check. And here, king to e4. Castles by Vidit. And look at this. Nodirbek is up a piece. He has this beautiful knight here, but Vidit's queen cutting off the white king completely. The rooks are coming to e8 and d8. Is this just resigns territory for white? Turns out, not really. Knight to c3. The idea being that now once the rook lands on d8, you will put a knight on d5. And here there are moves you could play. For example, you could give a check, king goes to d4, you give another check, let's say knight to d5. And okay, the game continues. You play something like queen to g6. It's not like white is enjoying his time with the king on d4. But Vidit played rook 8 to c8. And this is now very, very tricky. Now there is only one move that allows Nodirbek to maintain not just equality but also gain an advantage. So feel free to pause the video here and figure it out. What would you play here with white? It's not easy, you know, especially considering the times. Nodirbek 12 minutes on the clock, Vidit for almost 5 minutes, but it's a classical game. Have at it while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding it. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is king to d4. That's the only move. You defended the c4 pawn with the king, or okay, I could just show you what happens if you don't do this. Let's say you play queen d4, you defend the pawn this way. Already f5, and now you've taken away the d4 square from the white king. Let's say go king to d5, queen to g2 check, king to d6, and it's a very, very quick checkmate. There's no way out of this. So king to d4 is crucial here. Now, okay, we have rook f to d8, rook f to d8, and now knight to d5. We have rook a to c, queen to b3, preparing to capture on c4, and rook 8 to c1. And now, what can Vidit play here? I will tell you the top move recommended by the engine because it's king h8, but who plays this? So I will give you what seems like a normal move. Queen to b6 check. Okay, the knight is pinned. King to e4, and now you repeat. Queen to b3. Again, you go and you hope for a repetition here, as maybe Nodirbek is also very low on time here. But he would also have queen to c3. He would block here, and if f5 with check, king f3, and now you would be forced into a trade. You will play queen captures. Now the trick is, rook cannot capture to defend the pawn. If rook captures, you just capture the knight here, and if pawn captures, you also capture the rook with check. So knight would have to capture, and now you capture on c4. And okay, you have 2 rooks versus 2 rooks and a knight, but you do have 2 extra pawns, so maybe you can save this. However, Vidit played pawn to f5 first. He sees the glimpses of the variation because he's very low on time. He just doesn't find the correct move order. Now rook h to e1, and now queen to b6 no longer does anything. If queen to b6 check, now you just go king d3, and if queen to b3 check, you can even play rook to c3, and not a lot of ways for you to continue this. So here, rook to d6 by Vidit. Now comes rook to e5, putting pressure on f5 and also preparing to double up on the e file if the situation allows it. We have king to h8 by Vidit, sidestepping any nasty checks here, and queen to c3, offering a queen trade. Vidit has to decline, queen to a2, and now queen to c2, again offering a trade, queen a3, and now rook c to e1. The c4 pawn is sufficiently defended, and you don't have to worry about anything here, but Vidit has to worry about rook to e8 check. So he brings the rook back, rook to d8, queen to c3, offering a queen trade, and now queen to a2. We have king to d3, queen to g2 now, preparing queen captures on h3. You have to take, every little bit your opponent gives you. Queen to d2, Nodirbek even invites the capture, queen captures, and now queen to e3. Nodirbek is happily inviting a queen trade as his position is objectively winning. Queen to h5, and now rook to e7, just nicely grabbing more space here. Pawn to h6 by Vidit, creating some breathing room for his king, so he doesn't have to, have everything here guarding that e8 square. And now comes queen to g3. Threatening checkmate. They're both very low on time, so I will just show it. You can also play rook captures on g7 here. It's just a much nicer and quicker way to do this, but of course Nodirbek will not miss his chance to take down a 2700 just to get a fancier checkmate. Let's say queen f6 check, king to g8, rook to g1 check, and now a very nice checkmate. Let's say king h7, and this will be checkmate. So after h6, queen to g3 was played, going after g7, so allowing Vidit to fight a little bit more. Rook to g8, and now rook to g1, tripling up on that g7 pawn. Rook to b8, Vidit knows that he has to give it up, look for some counterplay here. But even rook to b3 check is not dangerous. The knight can simply retreat. So you can see how this knight is, this is a monster knight. Attacking, defending, controlling the entire position. The white king survived on e4 and on d4. Absolutely incredible. Rook captures on g7. Rook to b3 check. Okay, knight blocks. And now rook to d8 with check. King to c2, and now rook captures on c3. One last attempt by Vidit. King captures. Queen to e8 now. Or rather, no, I think after the captures was a resignation, I think. I will just check. Just give me a second. I don't want to trick you guys. Let me just check real quickly. Yeah, king captures, and here Vidit resigned the game. It was in this position on move 40 that Vidit resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here, obviously. Point being that mate is threatened, and if you play something like queen to e8 to stop rook g8, then there's even rook to h7 check. A nice final sacrifice to deliver checkmate. So beautiful game, beautiful opening. Lately I've really started enjoying the Queen's Gambit Accepted. I've started learning it a little bit, tried employing it in my games and leeches. It's a really wild, like all of my games look like this. Not in quality of moves, but in the madness appearing on the board. So I'm enjoying it quite a lot. I just have to learn a little bit more to get the upper hand on my opponents. A few times more than they do on me. But yeah, it's a really, really crazy opening, and I thought this was incredible. I have no idea what happened here. D captures on e5. Top move recommended by the engine. Vidit is the one who prepared this position. Like Nodirbek is the one trying to figure it out, and then you spend half of your time on bishop to b4 check. 43 minutes on bishop to b4 check. Incredible, and it was a great game, but in the end Nodirbek prevails. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, last video, like I said, versus Nodirbek Abdusattorov, the battle of two Nodirbeks, check it out. It's a pretty cool game. I would like to thank Michael Bowers, Eric Lee, Timothy Larkin, Ding Power, and William Cooper for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. This game also was a suggestion on the previous video, so thank you for suggesting it. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.